Okay, this next video pertains to one of my favorite topics in this course, and that's the distance formula. And the reason why this is one of my favorite topics is because it's just so useful. A basic question when you're looking at any map or any real world scenario is how far away are 2 points? And the answer goes back to the Pythagorean Theorem. And so the idea here is that you have some point A, well, let's say we just have some point here, and another point, say up here. And if you want to figure out the distance between these 2 points, you can use the Pythagorean theorem to do so. So I'm just drawing like x1, y1, x2, y2. And the key here is that if you want to figure out this distance d, what you can do is you can draw a right triangle. And then use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out what that distance is. So this distance here, you know, if you've studied the Pythagorean theorem, you know this would be A and this would be B. And the Pythagorean theorem says that d squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Let me color code these things. So here, D is the black edge, A is the green edge, and B is the blue edge. Okay, so everyone remembers the Pythagorean theorem. It says d squared equals a squared plus b squared. Well, that didn't give us the distance, but it's close to giving us the distance, right? All we need to do is take the square root of both sides. And so you should take d is equal to the square root of a squared plus b squared. And of course people in this class are like, wait a second, why didn't you take plus or minus? You just took the square root. Well, because we're dealing with a real world scenario here, we only care about the positive value because distance can't be negative, right? So we're only worrying about the positive distance here. So that's why I'm ignoring the negative square root of a squared plus b squared. Okay, and now the question is, what are a and b? Well, b is the change in the y, so that's y2 minus y1, and a, the green value, is x2 minus x1 in this case. So we see here that d is equal to the square root of a squared plus b squared, where I've already said b is y2 minus y1 and a is x2 minus x1. Okay, so that's the derivation of the distance formula. So we figured out that this distance here is x2 minus x1. We figure out that this distance here is y2 minus y1, so we're given the distance from this point, let's say this point P1 to that point P2 is given by x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, and then you take the square root of that. Okay, so let's use this formula in example 1 to find the distance between the pairs of points 2, negative 4. So 2, negative 4 would be down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 2, negative 4. And let's say the other point is negative 1, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're asked to find the distance from there to there. So what we're supposed to do here is figure out the change in y, which is b, and then the change in x, which is a. So this is x2 minus x1, b is y2 minus y1, and then we're going to take the square root of that. So this distance d here is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And now I just plug in my x1 and y1s and x2 and y2. So this will be x1, that'll be y1, This will be x2, that'll be y2. And I just plug those values in and simplify. So I get -1 minus 2 squared. So that's telling me that this distance a is 3 there. And then y2 minus y1 is 5 minus -4 squared. So I get that the distance d is the square root of 3 squared plus 9 squared. Okay, which is the square root of 9 plus 81, or the square root of 90. Okay, now you might be wondering, how do I simplify this again? D equals square root of 90. Well, you can write that as square root of 9 times the square root of 10, which is 3 square root of 10. So I think my final answer would be that D is 3 times the square root of 10. That's the most simplified answer we can come up with. Oops. Okay, so there's my final answer. This distance is 3 times the square root of 10.